Hello, my name is Janice B. Gordon, and this is Scale Your Sales Podcast. Welcome to Scale Your Sales Podcast, listed number 9 of 43 best podcasts for every sales professional. I am Janice B. Gordon, the customer growth expert, recommended by LinkedIn Sales as one of 15 innovating sales influencers to follow. In today's episode of Scale Your Sales Podcast, my guest talks about greatness is in the agency of others. He talks about pre-2022 and the business case and value statements that very much focused on customer value, uplift, derived from personalized and optimized cross-channel messaging. But now, more relevant, it speaks to the reduction of tech debt, the architecture and the level of tech stack involved with many enterprise organizations, and really rapidly time to value, how users can onboard and upskill as quickly as possible. What is the human resource optimization? This is a subject that's carried through a few podcasts, so it's really interesting that my guest should talk about this as being primary important. My next guest leads the EMEA Sales team for Braze, a comprehensive customer engagement platform that powers meaningful and relevant interactions between customers and brands. Prior to Braze, he was an infantry officer in the British Army and served on operations around the world. Outside of work, he is an adventure enthusiast and is currently preparing to row across the Atlantic in December 2023. So welcome to Scale Your Sales Podcast, John Ashton.
Lovely to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
It's great to have you here, and thank you very much. I know we're both on holiday soon, so and you're kind of coming up to your third quarter, so you're really busy. So thank you for taking the time. I'm really curious about your role as your lead in sales, and what's the particular perspective that you have in helping the organization Braze to grow?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, it's looking around corners, both at opportunities and potential threats as well. The team are understandably head down in in-flight opportunities, working accounts, having as many client interactions as possible. And whilst you want to be a useful support in those conversations and be close to the coalface, be close to the deals, it's also a case of, I think, of being able to step back, understand the data trends, understand what's going on in the market, understand what the future vision of the company is, and make sure that is all aligned, or there is a common understanding of the overall situation, so you can help people get ahead of that and see the future and help people get there as quickly as possible.
Excellent. So in terms of a comprehensive customer engagement platform, how does this compete with others in the market? What's unique and different here?
Yeah, it's a very competitive marketplace, and the competitive dynamics operate at a number of levels, from companies which are in sort of startup scale-up mode, kind of the genesis of the company that I work for, Braze, and also some more longer standing incumbent players. The differentiation, I won't get too technical, but our platform was basically built off a high frequency trading platform. So that was ingesting billions of data points in real time, making important decisions off the back of them as quickly as possible for investment purposes. And that infrastructure and capability was applied to the customer engagement use case, which is effectively listening to your audience, understanding what they're saying to you, and acting accordingly with personalized, relevant messaging. So that there are some technical differentiators, because we were founded in 2011, so the age of the smartphone. And there are some considerations based on that compared to, say, 1990s ESPs, where it was a very singular channel focus. Beyond the tech, a really important piece of point of differentiation for us in the sales teams is differentiating through execution. So when a prospect goes to market, visits all the websites, reads all of the, the high level blurb, it can all seem like much of a muchness. And when the capabilities or requirements are fairly entry level or low level sophistication, you can solve that through a lot of different solutions. But I think the experience they get through salespeople, meeting them where they are, understanding their business, their opportunities, their pain points, and really living that, deeply understanding it, and then tailoring the solution towards it, is a really important point of differentiation, and not only expediting sales, but also creating a very good customer experience.
So how do you help your sales team to really understand the customer, what their objectives are? What do you do that other companies don't do? How do you go that extra mile?
Well, I can't talk to other companies. I'm sure they're probably doing a lot of this as well, but we have a few, I guess, tricks up our sleeve which have proved to be valuable over the years. So first and foremost, we like to live and love the brand. So we're fortunate working, kind of in the with B2C companies. These are the brands that we interact with on a day-to-day basis. So it's very easy to have a customer experience, download the app, purchase something, subscribe, and through that you get an understanding about what the current messaging experience is like. Where there might be some challenges, maybe there might be some missed opportunities. And that's a really good place to start the conversation, because I guess on a human level, it shows that you've taken an interest in that business. You're a customer, you have a perspective as a user, and that's ultimately the people that they're obsessed about. So that's a good way to start the process. Beyond that, we have a very value-centric sales process. So capturing the important metrics, capturing what's happening at a high level, investor reports, latest market trends, is also very good kind of macro awareness, which allows us to ground the conversation and also tailor what we're proposing solution wise to be as relevant as possible. And yeah, I'm sure as any good salesperson will tell you, all deals are won, lost, and discovery. That's just not a phase at the beginning. Discovery is always ongoing, and we keep that top of mind throughout the deal.
Excellent. So tell me more about, you say that vanity metrics to profitability and operational efficiency is no more, in terms of what is more relevant. More compelling story is reducing tech debt and rapid time to value. Tell me more about your thoughts around this. What do you mean?
Yeah, so pre-2022, an unprecedented bull run in the market that for this space was further juiced up by COVID as people withdrew from the physical world and engaged more digitally. And we were finding, certainly in our kind of startup digital first space, that those companies' valuations and success was highly predicated on user volumes, regardless of whether those users were converting, regardless of whether those users were spending, were profitable. Now, those metrics, I think, are still relevant and are still good kind of leading indicators. And we still, build business cases and value statements around that, because ultimately that's one of the headline features of what our technology delivers. It's growing your business through more efficient acquisition, better retention, and better growth of your customers. We have seen that over the last 18 months, a more of a pivot towards the operational efficiency, I guess, value proposition, largely in light of the macro and probably a long overdue adjustment, as companies are primarily in business to turn a profit. But also tied to that is our own company's sort of pivot more towards the enterprise. We've had an enterprise business for a number of years, but that's probably growing the most at the moment. And those companies often have, very complex, entrenched tech stacks, lots of different point solutions, lots of different technologies which have maybe been purchased on the fly to solve a short-term use case. And this period seems to be a kind of a point of introspection and review where they're looking at all that tech debt, not only in terms of like IT cost of ownership, but also the people dependencies and largely the engineering dependencies to, sustain linkages between different systems. And we're seeing great success in kind of cutting through that, quantifying what that tech debt actually means in terms of spend, in terms of hours wasted, and crafting value propositions around a more efficient, streamlined approach.
I've just interviewed Dr. Jeremy Node, and he was talking about that very same problem, in that when you're switching between application, you lose about 25 minutes in just switching your brain, and the tech stack has grown so much. There's so many applications. A previous interview was also talking about this. Enterprise companies now have maybe about 900 applications. 900 applications. So, the level of complication within the enterprises and even small organization will often have hundreds of applications. So we look at the architecture and making sure that that is aligned and they're talking to one another. What we don't spend enough time on is the usability of switching between all of these applications. And that's where there is a lot of waste and loss. So it's really interesting that you're also bringing up this point as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think you could probably further break it out between, back-end considerations and front-end considerations. There's a lot of IT architecture plumbing going on in the background, which, can be a source of pain, but also increasingly the front-end user experience. To your point, switching between different applications can be very time consuming and not a great experience. And, we all live our lives through the iPhone and the standards that Apple have set through that, and what you expect in terms of a seamless digital experience is really relevant. And that's also an area of the product we invest quite heavily in terms of UI UX.
Yeah. So what strategies do you use to optimize your salespeople in the sales operation? We're talking about optimization. So what are you doing?
Yeah. So I guess it kind of works on a few levels. And I guess at the highest level, I think that talent solves for all problems. And we've been through a rapid period of growth and a lot of hiring, and we've learned a lot of lessons through that and kind of tie down our profile. And there are a few attributes, which we hire for and also seek to develop. Number one of which I think would say is curiosity, intellectual curiosity. Going back to the point around discovery, highly relevant for successful salespeople. Beyond that, giving people a forum and the tools to be great evangelists. We're coming in as a bit of a challenger to the market in many aspects, and giving people the confidence, the talk tracks, and the tools to come in with a compelling, differentiated point of view, and have the confidence and passion to really propagate that to change the status quo. I think that area around talent is probably the most important for me, and having conversations around those attributes, thinking about creative ways in which to develop them, be that presentations, role playing, making people as effective as possible in those customer engagements. Beyond that, we're a very data driven company. We've got data coming out of our ears, and I think just having frameworks and consistency around revisiting the same data points. And often I've seen over the years, people take a snapshot view of, how pipe gen is, how forecast accuracy is. And yeah, that can be relevant, but I think it has limited value if it's not based in the story, and having that view over time to see how people are trending and can kind of apply that retrospective analysis to go to, okay, we did this, and that improved that, or we didn't do this and that caused that number. So getting a richer understanding through the data, but also benchmarking as well. We're fortunate to have a broader global sales team. So I'm always really interested to see what is the data complexion of the top performing teams, and how can we use those sort of lagging indicators to influence our leading indicators and get towards that.
It seems like you're a data-led organization, and I wonder, are you led by data in sales? How much of the humanity, the relationship, is in that? What is the balance between the two?
Yeah, it's a really, really good question. I think what was the saying? People make decisions with their heart and then rationalize with their head. So I think that initial impact and experience through living the brand, through having credibility is absolutely fundamental, but probably not enough to get a deal done. There's going to be a time and a place later on the process where you need to be coming in with data and more quantitative insights to justify your position. Having been in business now for 12 years, we've got some really interesting insights into the benefit and the value of taking the approach that we advocate for, and the results that's delivered for our customers. But it's got to be grounded in an overarching value narrative, and predicated on the person who's telling you that data having credibility.
Right. So you mentioned before about the recruitment. Curiosity was really important, and role playing might be how you develop that. But actually, how do you recruit for that? How the kind of key elements that you look for in the personalities? How do you actually measure that?
Yeah, the Feudal tactical exercises which we've used in the past around vague briefs. So deliberately vague presentation brief, and the good people will have a ton of questions around it to try and nail down something that's exactly what you want to see in it. It can be, it sometimes can feel a little bit disconcerting for them, like why have I received this rubbish brief? But that's the kind of the part of the exercise. But also just in interactions, I think it's the best people and the most intellectually curious people have just as many questions for you as you do for them. So the absence of people really wanting to go deep on the company's values, the company's vision, as well as the more kind of practical stuff for salespeople, like quota, run rate, how many deals, like what's the complexion of a good year look like? They're all really useful indicators that this is a thoughtful person, and that the curiosity that they're applying in the hiring process is going to be reflected in how they go to market.
So how do you recruit for kind of neurodiversity, not only but global diversity? People think differently, they present themselves differently. So if you have a model that you're measuring for those nuances like curiosity, people are going to receive that information in a different way and present it in a different way. So there's going to be an element of something that you're looking for, the model of what you're looking for, but actually it's coming from someone that actually sees the world differently. And as we all know, a diverse workforce is often more productive. So how do you ensure that the measures that you're using in order to attract and recruit your workforce is not a measure that actually creates a barrier?
I think achieving that starts with having an existing diverse workforce and diverse points of view, diverse experiences and backgrounds on the panel. There's a limit to the perspectives on people that I can provide due to my background, and I'm really interested to hear what other people who have a different perspective and, to your point, who are neurodiverse have to say. So I think understanding the limitations of your own perspective, greatness is in the agency of others, and having a really diverse talent team and multiple steps along the process, so you get those different points of views from people who have had different experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. Talking about different experiences, how about kind of rowing across the Atlantic? Where did that come from?
Yeah, I was actually brought in as the fourth oar. Three of the guys I'm doing it with they'd been talking about it for a number of years, and I think they realized it was probably gonna be a bit too hard with three, so they were looking for a fourth. And yeah, the opportunity came up about 18 months ago now. So yeah, just grasped it with both hands.
So when do you actually leave?
We set off on December the 12th, got a couple of weeks in the Canary Islands before doing preparation. And yeah, we anticipate probably between 6 to 7 weeks.
Right. So how much training are you having to do at the moment leading up to it?
Yeah, it's the most valuable training is really on the boat, and there's a mandatory set of hours that you have to do as a team, and hours at night, etc., to show that you're kind of competent and know how to operate your boat. So we've hit those mandatory hours. We're trying to get in some more. I have the boat down where I live in September, so we'll be out on the water a bit more. But aside from that, it's a couple of hours in the gym every morning, just doing weights or grinding it out on the erg.
Interesting. I interviewed Matt Garman just literally a couple of episodes ago, who also went across the Atlantic as well, and there's lots of lessons to be learned, I'm sure, that you'll be sharing with your sales team when you get back. But it's quite interesting because your Army background as well. I wonder how much of the way that you lead a sales team is similar or different to the experience you had in another organization, the Army, and also how that's led to your perspective on the world and the adventures that you've decided to go on.
Yeah, I think it's been highly influential on how I do the current job, and I guess my overall sort of approach to life. My leadership training was all in the military, and it's, I think, one of the few organizations that invest so heavily. You know, you have a full year residential training, not only to be how to be a soldier, but also how to be a good leader. And I guess that the main thing I took away from that experience and that organization was the importance of values and standards. So it's a very values-led organization. They genuinely live and breathe it. There's even annual training around it. And you know, coming into this space, which can be highly challenging and highly complex, you're, you know, almost daily faced with devilish scenarios where it's not necessarily win-win, and there's difficult decisions to make. And when you strip it back, what ultimately determines how effective you can be in those situations, be that leading a team, making difficult decisions, is your personal values and your professional values and your moral compass. So yeah, that was a great learning from the time in the Army. Something I've tried to carry forward. Of course, there's nuance to the values. Some are evergreen, for example, you know, integrity. But yeah, it's when you're faced with difficult situations, it's kind of nice to have that as your charter to go to.
Yeah. So in terms of we're talking about values. You say that, you know, you've got high values and invest in relationships and cooperation with the customer success team. So I'd like to understand how kind of sales and customer success work together at Braze.
Yeah, so my first job at Braze was in account management. So working really closely alongside our customer success teams on the commercial side of customer relationships, part of the sales team, you know, but focused on upsells and renewals. And I think if you think about this sort of the spectrum of customer success from one end of, you know, more product technical focused purely on the customer, to the other end of more commercial focus, our success teams have always kind of been more geared towards the former. So they are genuine experts, not only in our technology, but also in the effective utilization of it. And not having the pressure of those commercial considerations and targets. They are incentivized, of course, around renewals, but it's not as as overt as it is for sales. means that they have been a really important partner, and sometimes counterbalance, to some of the sales prerogatives and urgency to grow accounts. So that's been really effective for customer retention and customer growth, which successful integrations, setting the scene for further expansion. That trust is there, the wins are there, and that gives people the confidence and comfort to expand into different product lines and services. But also on the new business side as well, just I guess at a tactical level, going back to what we were saying earlier, because the space is so competitive, such an important differentiation point is customer advocacy. And our customer success team have facilitated a lot of that, but also the customer success experience they're going to have after they sign. That I think is there's a number of companies that haven't quite got that right, and just sort of sold the dream and difficult to deliver it. But we've got a really good track record and some great frameworks that ensure that doesn't happen. In terms of sort of general collaboration day to day, I think the overarching principle for me has always been just over communication. We've of course got all the shared Slack channels, regular meetings and whatnot, but you can't communicate too much. You're all going to have different conversations, speaking to different people, and that's all well and good, but a kind of an all-informed net, as we used to call it in the army, is paramount.
So do you have, you've got the sales team, you've got customer success, the overlap is the customer, and that's how it works. They're separate entities or they sit together. How is it organized?
Yeah, so different departments, but highly collaborative. And a lot of the success and sales motions, have parallels, discovery, rediscovery, alignment on our value proposition. What are we actually delivering? We've actually got a big project ongoing at the moment to provide a framework that better defines that and aligns it. Imagine you're, dropped in the elevator with the CEO, kind of what's the boilerplate of what we're doing. And that's obviously really important in the current climate for justifying investment and further partnership, but also for creating a basis in which we can build further value. Okay, so if this is what's been delivered, if this is where we're currently being successful, well, actually we've got a load of other features and services which can enhance that. So rather than having maybe a sort of reactive mindset, it's more proactive based on the realities of the value that we're delivering, which is defined between both teams. Excellent.
Okay, so if you're on a desert island, which you're going to be on soon,
hopefully not. Hopefully it'll be Antigua.
What would be the one thing you took with you?
I think it would be some sort of tablet or device with a album of videos with family. Bit corny, and I was when my kids were young, I was always never really liked being in front of the camera, but I'm so glad that my other half was always videoing stuff. So looking back now, it's wonderful to see, and that would probably keep me going. Yeah,
brilliant, excellent. So how can listeners get hold of you, John?
LinkedIn's probably the best way. John Ashton, Braze.
Excellent. All right, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, and see you in Antigua in January then.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
All right, thank you.
Cheers, take care, bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Scale Your Sales podcast. If you like this discussion, feel free to listen to other episodes or watch the captioned show on YouTube and subscribe to future episodes. I would really appreciate it if you would leave a positive review on iTunes. Thank you.